Hey everybody, it's Steve Biederman. We're here with Lessons I've Learned, Volume 2, and this was How to Run a Company Your Way. That's what we're talking about this season. And listen, I apologize for this background that I have. It's not the perfect office environment, but I'm out of town. And today I want to talk to you, though, about something that was completely life changing for me. Not only career changing, but life changing. And I got fired in my career. And it was at a really important time, and I want to talk to you about that. Before I do, though, let me explain where I'm at and my casual nature. I'm in Florida today. You know, I live in Colorado and I'm in Florida, and my family lived in Florida for decades and decades. And in this community, our family built a residential community for what we called at the time learning disabled people, people that had some intellectual challenges that they needed support, but also wanted to live a full life. And we call this the Foundation for Independent Living. And I'm down here today working with the foundation. I'm the chairman of the board and have enjoyed it. We have a community of about 65 residents. We're a village, and it's wonderful to see. And in this environment, I get to really practice what I preach in terms of all the lessons I've learned in my business and how to support an organization without being onerous and without taking advantage of it, and recognizing that the organization, in our sense here, the community, is what is most important. So I get to be here today. But let me backtrack a little bit and talk to you about something that happened to me. So as I was building my career, and now I was in my 30s, I always was very worried about losing my job. I was always worried about money. I was always worried that I didn't really know what to do or how to do what I did. And I was pulling from every kind of challenge that I could to do better. And sometimes I would find myself in a position where I had no experience at all, but had the job and tried hard to do it. And my concern was, as I moved up and I went from a job to a different job, where I took on that challenge and maybe felt didn't have the confidence to pull it off. My concern was that now I'm making more money, and what if I lose my job? Because in our house, every dollar that I made, we ended up finding a way to spend it. So it wasn't as if we were building our savings. We weren't doing that. I had a family, I had a daughter and a wife, and every penny that we made went to something. In fact, I'll tell you this, that we were in a position to where not only was my wife and I were we working, but we were doing things like uh, courier delivery during the tax season to make a little extra money for every package we delivered. We were stuffing envelopes for advertising and making $20 for every 1,000 that we put in. So I tell you this because I want you to understand how important my income was to me. And I knew that I needed to do more and to be better. And I wondered, how do people uh, buy these bigger homes? How do people have a life where they seem safe? And I was not feeling that way. So I got a job that was the head of marketing for a national company, the largest company of its kind in the service industry. I won't tell you the name because I'm not sure that I'm allowed to do that. But we were a very large company. We had about over 20,000 employees. And somehow I passed my resume onto them and convinced them during the interview process to hire me to run marketing for the corporate entity. It was way, way above my pay station. So I was working in a job that I had no experience doing, that I wanted because I wanted the income that came from it. And on a lark, tried to get this job when it became available. And the next thing you knew, I had the job. So in doing this, it was a seasonal company, meaning that they did, uh, their revenue was driven from March through November. The rest of the year was preparing for the next year. So I came in the winter to prepare a marketing plan that would meet the sales objectives of the company from a lead generation perspective, and that those leads would convert into sales. I'd never done this before. Well, I can't say never. I had a small company at one time that I did it in the neighborhood to get the business that I needed at that time, but I had never done a true marketing approach. And remember, in those days, we didn't have the internet, so it wasn't easy access to find information. Meaning, I couldn't put in a search engine. How do I build a marketing plan with tactics that will meet the goals of specific lead count that I need throughout the entire country? I mean, it was just overwhelming me when I finally realized I had this job. But I went to work and I thought through how to do it, and ultimately I did build a very tactical plan of how to get leads that the company could convert into sales during their selling season. And it was an aggressive growth plan for this company. But on top of it, it was also less money to spend than they had spent the year before. So certainly I went to what they had done before and saw how they allocated money by their tactics, and in that I learned what they had done and saw what they had spent and saw the lead generation that came out of that, and realized that I had less money to spend but higher leads that I needed to bring to fruition. So I just thought of everything and anything we could do in addition to what had been done to improve this. Very intense, a lot of sleepless nights. Ultimately, we exceeded our goals. I was so elated. There were many things I did, and we'll have another meeting of the lessons I've learned and how to build a marketing plan and a strategy that goes with tactics that turns into leads and turns into income. But that's not today's meeting. This is a meeting about where I got fired. So, after having an incredibly successful year, I went into year two and had a second incredibly successful year. It was almost heroic in proportion. I was being noticed by the board of directors of this company, which, by the way, at that time was in West Germany. And here I was in Denver, and they were noticing me. And I had a lot of pats on the back for what I had done. And I had built up a lot of confidence. But here's an interesting thing: my boss, my direct boss, did not like me. He knew deep down, I believe he knew that I had gotten the job unreasonably and that I didn't belong in this position. I didn't have the sophistication of his education. But he couldn't refute the dynamic that I had met the goals. But he was very tough on me. Interestingly, today I would consider him one of my mentors. Not because he ever took that on, but because in thinking through what I learned from him, there's no question that there was a lot of mentoring that I was able to pull from him. So he never coached me for a day, though. So the company this year was getting ready to sell itself. And in doing it, it wanted to meet a very high profitability. And because it didn't do production in the wintertime, they wanted to cut back the staff hugely, to cut back over 5,000 people and reduce that payroll as quickly as they could after the selling season. improve their profitability and their EBITDA so that they looked very attractive to the market that they were trying to sell to. Well, this was a great challenge. I had certainly never been involved in anything like this, but part of my involvement was the same for every manager in the company. And to our direct reports, we were asked to rank each person. In that ranking, and by the way, we weren't at the time aware of why we were ranking people, the company as a whole took a line and drew a line where people who were ranked below that line had to be terminated in the company. So that being said, we went out and literally the company terminated over 5,000 people. They did it within about 3 weeks of time. It was very intense. I was now above the line, so I wasn't planning to lose my job. So I go with my boss and one of his associates. They take me to lunch, and I believe I'm going to lunch. One, to say, wow, this was very hard, this process we did of termination. Thank goodness we can start looking towards what the new year offers us. And at the same time, I had never really been to lunch with my boss. As I said, he wasn't close to me. So as we're talking, in the middle of the meal, he said, Steve, you had a really good year. We all appreciate what you've done. And by the way, you've been noticed by such and such a person who is on our board, and they think highly of you. And that person is very invested in the day-to-day operations of the company. And I just want you to know that. But I'm very sorry to tell you that we're going to need to terminate you too. I was stunned. And by the way, I had never lost my job. And I was being told I was terminated while in the same breath, I was being told I did a terrific job. The blame was on the company that they were reducing their corporate staff, and that wasn't based on the weigh-in of where you were ranked. It was based on other considerations. And he said to me that he took no responsibility for it, and he was very, very sorry about it and felt it was undeserved, but nonetheless, he had to terminate me. I later found out his associate was one of our corporate attorneys. So they tell me this, and I was just stunned, and I sat there and I said, well, you can't do that. He said, what do you mean I can't do that? Of course I can do that. And I said, I've done a good job. There's nothing I couldn't have done that would deserve this. He said, Steve, we've let go of 5,000 people, and there's things that a lot of people haven't earned in terms of being terminated, and it's your turn, and I'm very sorry it's your turn. So I stood up and I left. I walked out of that meeting. I was frustrated. I was demoralized. And I was really, frankly, speechless. So in those days, we weren't working with the computers as we were today online, on the internet, emailing. We were using faxes in those days. I came back to the office, and absolutely without thinking, I went into problem solving mode. And I thought, I cannot lose this job. I cannot lose this job. I can't come home without an income. And I was driven into this survival mode, a mode that I had never done, an experience I had never had, and with a large company that I did not exactly know how to traverse. So I documented, just that afternoon, I documented all of my successes. I documented everything that I had done to assure the success of the company. I also wrote something saying that if this company is being sold without a head of marketing, it would be detrimental to the company. And I wrote and gathered data and wrote, and I spent all afternoon doing this. Honestly, at the moment, I didn't know why I was doing it. As I was working, so this was putting 1 foot forward at a time, 1 foot forward at a time. As I was working, I kept thinking my boss, who just terminated me, is going to walk in, but he didn't. He took the rest of the day off. I realized when he had taken the day off, I had a little more time to do something with all of this information that I had gathered. I hadn't yet called my wife to say, we've lost our income. I took everything I had and I wrote a passionate letter about why I deserved to stay in the company, why it was beneficial for me to be there to help with the furthering of the potential acquisition for the company. And I just wrote an impassioned letter, and I attached some of the information that I had gathered. It was about a 5-page fax. And I took the fax and I sent it to the chairman of the board in West Germany at that time. And I explained in my letter, that I had been told I was losing my job, and that I never said it was unfair to do, but what I did say is the benefit of having me is critical to the company at this stage of the game. And that's what I did. I also took ownership of all the success that we had. So I didn't give any success to my manager. I didn't say a word about anybody else above me. I just talked about myself and exactly what I had done, what I had accomplished, and why my learning that I was going to be terminated was not beneficial to the company. That's what I did. The next day, I come to work, and by then I had told my wife that I had lost my job and that I was on a short notice here to leave the company. Somewhere in the day, I'm going about my business and still feeling demoralized. My boss comes in, and he is angry and livid and just very upset. And he said, "What did you do? Biederman, what did you do?" I'll never forget it. And I looked up and said, "What do you mean, Dave?" And he said, "What did you do? You communicated with the chairman of the board for this company in West Germany." And I realized what he was talking about. And I said, "Yeah, I did. I faxed a letter." He said, "Well, you've created a huge problem here. This is a problem for me." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "They've given me direction that I cannot terminate you, that you were on a short leash, that you provided them with 6-week staged plans throughout the winter that would add winter income to this company, of which we've never done before, and they want to do it. But I'm going to tell you this. If you miss any of your goals in your 6-week crazy intervals, I'm letting you go. You just need to be prepared. I'm letting you go." He walked out. I had my job. I didn't have any more income, but I had my job. And now I had a challenge ahead of me. And the challenge was I had to meet these goals. But I also had another idea, which was, what if I start thinking about what else I would do? Because he's going to fire me if I ever miss a goal, and you can't always be sure of goals. And I thought about that, and I went home and I talked to my family and my wife, and we talked about alternatively what I would do. And really, the counsel back to me was, if you're going to do this, you need to own it. You need to do this. You don't need to be planning contingency plans about when you lose your job. Just do it. You thought you could do it. You put a plan together and convinced people you could do it. So go do it. And it was a great lesson for me to stay focused on what I was doing and don't consider failure. Just consider what was in front of me and how best I could be successful at it. This plan required a wide range of work. It required travel and phone calls and engaging branch managers of 167 branches that had to participate in it. I had about 4 weeks to prepare for the first stage, and we did it. We exceeded our goals. We developed a winter income for a business that even today, decades later, that industry now creates winter income that they never had done before. Certainly something that I feel I can put my name on, but nobody else is feeling I have a name to be put on there. But I know what I accomplished. So here's what I've learned. I've learned that when somebody makes a choice about me, they terminate me, I have to be in alignment with them. And if I'm not in alignment with them, then I have to be very clear on what is important to me. And I also have to realize that in this case, once I lost my job, there was nothing worse that was going to happen to me. So it freed me up emotionally, mentally, intellectually to do anything I felt like doing and live without boundaries. And my choice was to do something about not accepting being terminated and instead do something about moving forward, being successful. Now, look, this isn't going to happen to everybody this way, and there are still going to be times that you're told that you're losing your job, and there's no way that you can solve that problem. But instead of living within your demoralization, instead of accepting anything but what is important to you about what your next step forward is, before any of that, recognize that it's on you. Okay? It's on you. Your emotion comes second, your demoralization comes last, and your opportunity for removing boundaries and doing more sits in front of you. I had no idea how it was going to come out, but I had no contingency. And my own family said, don't plan on failing, go kick ass. And I kicked ass and I was successful. And I will tell you this, that CEO of that company that I worked for, not the chairman, the CEO that I worked for, Dave, never cared for me, was always looking to terminate me. But you know what? He couldn't do it because my choices counted. So make your choices. As somebody wrote here while I was talking, Mike, bet on yourself. Do something versus doing nothing. Do not live within your own pitiful feelings. Accept the moment that you're in and go forward with it. That became a basis for the success that I have had in my career. When I had a company and we built it from two guys felt like living on a park bench to one of the world's leaders in contact center technology, there were many days that we had no answers, none. There were many days that fear was ripe, but there were no days where we examined our fear. There were only days where we looked towards the future. And I think I learned that lesson the day I got fired. So I hope that helps you a little bit. I hope it gives you confidence to bet on yourself, to remember that your bravery is about what's inside in bad days, not on good days. And every bad day that you are faced with, like a day of termination, is a gift. It's a gift for you to take it on yourself, to own it, and to find the next step forward. So with that, listen, you take care. I hope you get a chance to listen to this. I hope it benefits you. I'm always happy to talk to you. Let me know what I can do. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to be talking to you again. Can't wait. You take care. Bye-bye.